Great. Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. Today's June 11th, 2026. We will call this Alameda County Water District Board of Directors meeting to order. We will start with item number 1. Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Here.
Huang,
Here.
Gunther,
Here.
Sethy,
Present.
and Akbari.
Here. Director Huang, can you lead us in the salute to the flag, please?
Flag.
Thank you, everyone. Mr. Stevenson, do you have some housekeeping remarks for us?
I do. I can share a little bit of housekeeping comments here. Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the ACWD Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome the public's participation in this board meeting. My name is Ed Stevenson, and I serve as the district's general manager. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public present in person who wishes to make comments may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda, staff reports, and presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. You may reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom application or your dial pad if participating by telephone audio. This board meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. Again, thank you all for attending, and President Akbari, that completes my housekeeping remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. With that, we'll move to item number 3, public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed on the agenda, which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. We'll start with members of the public who are here in person. If anyone wishes to make a comment, you can approach the dais now. Seeing none, we'll move online to our members of the public who are on Zoom. If you wish to make a comment, you can raise your hand in the Zoom app now. Raise?
No.
Great. With that, we'll move on to item number 4, consent calendar. Do I have a motion to add any items to the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion to add items 5.1 through 5.18 to the consent calendar, please.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Akbari.
Aye. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar as amended?
I'll move consent calendar as amended. I get a second.
What's that? Through item 5.18?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I heard you proper.
So I think we have a motion from Director Gunther and a second from Director Weed. Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. With that, we'll move on to item 5.19, authorization of agreement for provision of paving services, and I'll turn it to our general manager.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. In this item, I will turn it over to our Director of Operations and Maintenance, Mr. Dan Stevenson, no relation.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. I appreciate that. Good evening, board, fellow staff in public. Item 5.19 is authorization of agreement for provision of paving services. In the summary, is the district's current agreement to repair and replace asphalt pavement removed during pipeline excavation work and to adjust valve pot elevations at various street construction sites within the district service area will expire on June 30th, 2026. An invitation for bids for the provision of paving services was issued on March 31st, 2026. The IFB package included a 2-year term with 3 additional 1-year options to be exercised at the discretion of the district. Cato's General Engineering Incorporated, doing business as Cato's Paving of Hayward, California, submitted the lowest bid. Sufficient funding has been programmed into the proposed budget and will be included in future budget proposals. Board approval of this item is consistent with the district's strategic plan strategy CEV1, efficiently manage and maintain our infrastructure to ensure reliability. Staff's recommendation this evening is by motion, number 1, authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement for the provision of paving services with Cato's Paving for a base term of 2 years and for a not to exceed amount of $5,007,100. And two, authorize the general manager to exercise up to 3 one-year option terms if the services are satisfactory to the district for a potential total contract term of 5 years and for a total not to exceed amount of $14,184,000, which includes a 15% contingency and an annual escalation cost determined by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the board? Seeing none, I'll turn to members of the public, both in person and online. If you wish to make a comment, you can approach the speaker's podium or raise your hand in the Zoom app. Seeing none, I'll turn it back to the board to see if we have a motion on this item.
I'll make the motion to move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. With that, we'll move on to item 5.20, public hearing to consider the 2025 to 2030 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. So I will open this public hearing. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome the public and your participation in this evening's public hearing. This public hearing will be to review, consider, and receive public comments on the draft 2025 to 2030 Urban Water Management Plan, also called the UWMP, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, also called the WSCP, and associated appendices and analyses. Thank you for attending in person, online, and by phone. Now, I'd like to review the ground rules for the public hearing. First, I will open the public hearing, and ACWD staff will make a presentation. Upon conclusion of the presentation, the board and ACWD staff will receive public comments. The board and staff will receive all comments without responding. Upon conclusion of the public comments, the board will request input from staff, respond to questions and comments that were raised by the public, and deliberate on the issues and then close the public hearing. Each person has 5 minutes to comment. We will require strict compliance with this time limit so that everybody is treated the same way. Staff will provide you with 15 seconds advance warning and will let you know when time is up. Since the hearing is being conducted both in person and online by teleconference, persons who wish to make public comments can indicate so verbally and by raising your hand in the Zoom app when we open the public comment portion of this hearing. For those participating in person, there are speaker cards in the back of the boardroom. If you haven't already done so, please submit a speaker card to the district secretary. Completing a speaker card is voluntary. If you're participating online and by phone, the district secretary will unmute remote meeting participants who have raised their hand when making public comments, and please be sure to unmute your phone line or computer microphone so that you may be heard. For those participating online that may not have a microphone on their computer, please dial in by phone at the number given on the agenda. If you're participating online and we are unable to hear you during the public comment portion of the hearing, please use the chat box feature of the Zoom interface to get the attention of the district secretary, and please state your name and service address when making a verbal comment. Providing this information is, of course, voluntary. So with that, the public hearing is now open for the draft 2025 to 2030 UWMP and the Water Shortage Contingency Plan. Staff will now make a presentation. I ask you please refrain from asking questions or making comments until the public comment portion of the public hearing. I'll turn it to the general manager.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. And staff will now proceed with the staff report and presentation on the 2025-2030 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. Ms. Heides, our Director of Water Resources, will summarize the staff report and characterize any comments received to date, and then introduce staff, who will present the key analysis and findings in the process moving forward. Just as a reminder, there's no board action related to this item. Any action related to this topic would be considered under the next item, 5.21. Okay, so I'll turn it over to Ms. Heides.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. California's Urban Water Management Planning Act, Water Code Sections 10610 and following, requires all urban suppliers that supply more than 3,000 acre-feet of water annually or have more than 3,000 customers to prepare and adopt an urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plan as standalone documents. The plans are required to be updated at least every 5 years, and the current due date is July 1, 2026. The Urban Water Management Planning Act requires a public hearing prior to the adoption of the plans. The district's last plans were adopted by the board on May 13th, 2021. Staff has prepared and distributed for public review the draft 2025 through 2030 plan and the water shortage contingency plan in accordance with the Urban Water Management Planning Act. On March 25th, 2026, the Water Resources and Conservation Committee received a report on the draft 2025-2030 plan and the water shortage contingency plan. On May 7th, 2026, the district posted on its website a notice of public hearing for the proposed revisions and updates to the plan and water shortage contingency plan, stating that the board will hold a public hearing on June 11th, 2026 to receive and consider comments on the draft 2025-2030 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. Staff also sent notices directly to the cities of Newark, Union City, Fremont, Hayward, Milpitas, and San Jose, as well as Union Sanitary District, Alameda County, Santa Clara County, State Water Contractors, Semi-Tropic Water Storage District, Santa Clara Valley Water District, Zone 7 Water Agency, San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, East Bay Regional Park District, East Bay Municipal Utility District, and the California Department of Water Resources. On May 7th, the draft 2025-2030 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan were posted on the district's website for public review, with the website included in the staff report. Staff will review with the board any comments received tonight on the draft plan, and to date, we've only received no written comments, but a couple of very brief social media comments asking what's the top line, to which staff responded online to that a few weeks ago. So with that, tonight, the team is here to provide a more detailed presentation about the Urban Water Management Plan and the Water Shortage Contingency Plan to proceed with the public hearing. And so I will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Russ Perry, our Water Resources Systems Analyst, who will kick off the presentation tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Heides. I think I have a clicker here. Perfect, it works. So I'm starting with the purpose of this presentation. It's to invite public comment, as previously stated, on the 2025 and 2030 Urban Water Management Plan, which will be referred to as the UWMP or the plan throughout these slides. I'll try to use the full name for clarity throughout. And the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, which will also be referred to as the WSCP throughout these slides. And the purpose is to hold a public hearing in accordance with the Urban Water Management Planning Act, and pending any comments received this evening, seek adoption of items 1 and 2 above in a separate after this agenda item. Here's a list of some of the acronyms that will be used, well, all the acronyms that will be used throughout this presentation, but again, I'll try to use the full terminology verbally for clarity. A quick overview of what we're going to be going through. First, some background on the Urban Water Management Plan and the Water Shortage Contingency Plan. Some of the key assumptions and findings that came out of the Urban Water Management Plan process. Some brief updates to the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, and then a review of the processes that led to tonight's hearing, and the planned updates that may come from public comments tonight and next steps, and then finally ending with our staff recommendation. So for background, the district adopts an urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plan every 5 years in accordance with the Urban Water Management Planning Act. And in contrast, we recently adopted the Water Resources Master Plan, we being the district, Water Resources Master Plan 2050, which is a broader long-term planning document. And we'll explain some of the differences between the two on a later slide. The Urban Water Management Plan is a legal requirement to report on the district's ability to meet current and anticipated future water demands with existing and future water supplies. It projects out a 20-year horizon, though ACWD is projecting out to 2050, so a 25-year horizon, and it's updated at least every 5 years. It's presented to the board for adoption pending public comments received tonight. The Water Shortage Contingency Plan is a smaller report that outlines actions to achieve demand reductions under 6 different standardized water shortage levels, which start at up to 10%, and 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, and the sixth stage, which is over 50% shortage in supply. Those are also included in the plan, which is referring to the Urban Water Management Plan as Chapter 10. This standalone document will also be presented to the board for separate adoption pending public comments received tonight. For some context on the Water Resources Master Plan, the WRMP, versus the Urban Water Management Plan, the Urban Water Management Plan is specifically a state-required planning document, which is prepared every 5 years to comply with the aforementioned Planning Act. And it's focused on documenting water demand, supplies, and shortage response, but also reflects other areas of interest that have a nexus with water supply, such as adoption of recycled water, water use efficiency planning, energy intensity of water, and many other things. Versus the Water Resources Master Plan is a broader agency strategy document that incorporates the board's vision, goals, and objectives to guide long-term water resource priorities and investment. And where the two overlap, the Urban Water Master Plan is sort of a snapshot of the current state of the Water Resources Master Plan implementation. So now we'll go into some of the assumptions that go into building the demand projections for both of those major plans. On the demographic side, the board may recall that we used a similar method to this 5 years ago in our last planning cycle. The concept is that we are primarily a residential service district, and thus we are very population driven from a demand perspective. And so we need an underlying population projection to make a demand projection. There's sort of two components involved here. One is taking the recent growth in housing and projecting that outward to the Urban Water Management Plan 20-year horizon. So that's 2045. And then there's a regional group, the Association of Bay Area Governments, that releases a planning document every so often, and it recently released their Plan Bay Area 2050 Plus, which projects housing for our district along with many other areas in the Bay. And that number is provided for 2050. So the concept is we bring in the linear trend through 2045 using historic demonstrated growth, and we account for that 2050 value as well. And so you can see there's sort of two projections that end up coming out of that, a continued linear and a final projection. And you can think of that as a range of possible outcomes for housing 25 years from now. That then gets converted into population, and that leads into our demand projection. The demand projection has two major underlying assumptions. One is the aforementioned population dependence, so it's very population driven. And the other is ACWD's commitment to meet the urban water use objectives. On the chart that you're seeing here, the y-axis is the demand, and you can see the historic growth as an orange line leading into a blue line, which is the forecasted demand under these two assumptions. And then above that, you have this red dotted line, which is the urban water use objectives that the state mandates. And you can see in 2040, those two lines converging as we achieve compliance by then. And then finally, the same range as you saw in the population projection is here in the demand projection.
With our future demand defined, the next step is look at other key assumptions about our future water supply. And for our local supply, we assume mid-level climate change projection impact. And for the state water project supply, we adopted the most recent delivery capability report from DWR. And for the San Francisco water supply, our analysis is based on the reliability table with Bay Delta plan accounted, and that was shared by San Francisco. And in addition, our modeling analysis incorporates current regulatory constraints and our current contract terms. As aforementioned, UWMP is a 5-year snapshot of the state status of the WRMP. So the implementation of the WRMP was incorporated into the model and the 5-year intervals. Now we've reviewed our key assumptions about our demand and supply, and let's look at our modeled reliability results of the UWMP. So here in this table, it summarizes the model shortages in a single dry year, which is the first row, and the single worst year of a multi-year drought, which is the second row. So from year 2026 to year 2040, the shortages of the single dry year is approximately 2 to 3%. And for the single worst year of a multi-year drought, that shortage levels is higher, approximately 8% to 10%. And after 2040, we see no shortages for single dry year and a single worst year of the multi-year drought. So that indicates the implementation of our WMP improves our long-term water supply reliability. So another thing we didn't show up here is in normal years, we expect the district can meet 100% of our customer demand. So overall, the district can meet its level of the service goal across all the planning period, and the implementation of our WRMP will improve our long-term supply reliability. And if the district encounters a water shortage in the future, the water shortage contingency plan is in place to guide our responses across different levels of severity.
The water shortage contingency plan, as previously mentioned, is somewhat of a separate document from the urban water management plan. It requires update on the same period every 5 years. It describes district actions under various shortage scenarios, stage 1 being 10%, stage 2 being 20%, et cetera, up to stage 6, which is a shortage greater than 50%. There's no fundamental updates to our ordinances or practices under a water shortage scenario in this new water shortage contingency plan. The only updates are to accommodate for the newest demand projection. And here on the table are some examples of how those different water shortages might be met, although that will play out depending on the actual circumstances. So that brings us to the steps that led up to this hearing. As far as the coordination with appropriate agencies, Ms. Heides listed a number of those communications that were issued, as well as notifications to the counties and cities around us. The public draft of this urban water management plan was made public in early May, as well as the water shortage contingency plan, so that the public can read it and assemble any comments. We've encouraged community input along many communication channels, including social media, mailers, news, papers, et cetera. And we provided an update on this draft at the March 25 Water Resources and Conservation Committee meeting. And then finally, there were newspaper notices published for the previous 2 weeks for the hearing tonight. Some updates have happened since that May 7th release of the draft, primarily grammatical and formatting edits to the document. There were updates to a few of the appendices to be included in the final plan, but importantly, there were no changes to the results or conclusions of the urban water management plan over this period. And there will be incorporating any changes as directed by the board at tonight's public hearing pending comments. The next steps will be for the board to conduct the public hearing and consider comments received. Following the hearing, the board is to consider adoption of the plan, the urban water management plan, and the water shortage contingency plan under agenda item 5.21. If adopted, staff would proceed with the additional actions of submitting to DWR via electronic submission, distribute copies to the California State Library, the local cities, Alameda County, and then within the district for our customers, provide electronic copies on the district website and hard copies made available via the front desk. That brings us to the staff recommendation, which is to conduct a public hearing to receive and hear comments on the draft 2025-2030 Urban Water Management Plan and the Water Shortage Contingency Plan.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Thank you, Mr. Z, and to all the staff that put work into this. So now we will open the public comment portion of this hearing. Will the district secretary please call up each speaker that submitted a speaker card?
We have no speaker cards submitted.
Will the district secretary please unmute the meeting participants who have raised their hands so that they may make public comments?
No meeting participants have raised their hands.
Is there anyone else who has not spoken yet who would like to address the board, either in person or online? Seeing none. Has the district secretary received any written comments?
No written comments were received.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the board. Does any director have any questions of staff or legal counsel based on the questions or comments presented by the public? Director Weed?
In your presentation, you did not mention
the proposal for recycled water in 2065, 15 years after the, is that part of this plan?
We'll refer to the expert.
Yes, so this planning horizon for the UWP is to 2050. So we didn't include the recycled water project in this modeling exercise.
So let me see if I understand. This plan is only for projects through 2050 and does not include a board authorization tonight for recycled water 45 years from now.
It does not include that. Yes.
That's true.
Mhm.
Thank you. Now, also, was there any reference to the state criteria for the water consumption per person per day?
Yes, the reference is through the compliance to the urban water use objectives that were listed in the demand assumptions chart.
It's not shown in any of the graphs, correct?
It is shown in the graphs under that red line, which was the urban water use objective requirements.
Is that quantified then? I missed it.
It isn't a table of values, although, yeah, it's not a table of values, but the red line there is the urban water use objectives that we would need to meet. And the blue line is the demand complying with those urban.
You didn't show it.
And those
Next.
GPCD requirements. Okay.
In your analysis for future housing, did you take into account that the future housing may well be an extremely high density, 126 units per the acre, as one recently approved project? And what have you made any analysis based on water consumption for small apartment as opposed to a single family residence?
Yes, it is a blanket assumption that all new housing will be multifamily high density housing, considering the build out of single family within the service district. So all of the housing in this previous chart, all of that orange line is assumed to be new high density multifamily housing, no single family new homes.
And what is the basis of the bump in population in 45? Where is the baby boom?
Yeah,
Is it?
that's a good question. This is a little bit of trying to account for two different potential futures. So think of it as more of a range. So the upper trend there, the 158,000 housing units that you see on the upper end, that is the Association of Bay Area Governments Planned Bay Area 2050 plus housing projection. The orange line up to that point is actual demonstrated historic growth being projected out. The idea is we want to know what we've definitely seen, but we also want to account for potentially larger growth. And so we're really accounting for all scenarios on the 2050 horizon, but the urban water management plan is only through 2045, and ABAG doesn't provide a housing number at that point.
Could think of other ways to display that as opposed to a huge bump in population, but as a separate alternative. Next, when we think of droughts, we have what I consider to be the nonsense of conservation as a way of life, because water's a good thing and droughts are episodic. I would hope that, I don't think it's reflected here, but that we look at contingency water requirements. An earthquake, do you have a contingency element in this plan at all?
Are you talking about like the water shortage contingency plan?
Contingency, whether we have a major earthquake or other yet to be determined disaster, that we have to find alternate water supplies and to be able to put that into our water management plan. We've had 4 months where we had a true drought in Alameda County Water District since 1970, the State Water Project. And that's when they cut the allocations to 0%. We were able to get 5,000 acre feet of federal water. South Bay Aqueduct has shares with the Valley Water District, which has rights to 75,000 acre feet of federal water per year in that same pipe. So to the extent possible that we can start looking in terms of a contingency to address a drought, or even far more likely major catastrophe, would be something I would hope we could put into our plan.
Yeah, my understanding is the decision making around development of new supplies and things like that really falls tightly under that water resources master plan. Whereas this this urban water management plan really captures the projected scenarios, including those droughts, and captures under the water shortage contingency plan. So on the more decision tree, do we go this way, do we go that way? That's really the purpose of the water resources master plan and should have those details.
I think it's more than a planning decision tree. It's identifying how you would address the issue when it arises on an interim basis. And we don't, it's not in our mindset, not in the state's mindset.
Maybe I'll just add to what Mr. Perry is saying is that, as the board recalls during the water resources master planning process, we evaluated a whole slew of different alternatives and pathways and infrastructure that were designed to try and meet a lot of objectives. And some of the important objectives in that analysis and what ended up in the master plan has to do with how are we going to address real serious issues related to like catastrophic loss of a water supply, and extended dry periods and so forth, or impairments to a water supply. So what the 5-year urban water management plan is doing is it's part of that overall long-term process. It's taking this first 5 years with the rest of the water resources master plan in mind. That's the flag that's been planted on the top of the hill. This is the first several miles of marching, but the flag still remains. And the flag is based upon all that analysis, including water supply related contingencies, including the infrastructure needed in order to accommodate those conditions in the future. So this is the first steps toward the ultimate plan.
Okay. And there are obviously some changes taking place. The groundwater, our semi-tropic contract ends in 2032 or 2034. Alternate Valley Water is now contracting with Irvine Ranch. Zone 7 is negotiating for that. So there's the dynamic issues there. The Delta's doomed. And if we get the state water, the tunnels, or the tunnel now, that'll be helpful. May not be solve the whole problem. So we've got some major changes that are going to take place, but probably beyond the 2050 timeline. And so I'm not as hung up on that, but realize that this is an evolving target and we're going to have to make changes. But let me see if I can get a clarification on what the status, because we were at the last board meeting when this came up. We showed a 2065 adoption and board approval of recycled water as a water supply. What is the status of anything on that proposal? And is it at all reflected in this plan, in this document?
Excuse me. I don't remember us doing that. That is not, we did not authorize in 2065 a plan for recycled water. It's a possibility, it's potential, but we did not authorize and say, we're going to do it.
Well, if
that was not in that meeting.
If it's incorporated in the plan, it's being adopted, would be adopted by the board, but you're saying that that is not anywhere at all in this document.
So in this UWMP, we didn't include the recycle water project. For the WMP, the recycle project, we want to put it into a adaptive management lens. So we are tracking the triggers of those projects, whether it's needed. But from our analysis, we don't think we will need this recycle water project before 2050.
Okay, my fear is once you put something like that into a plan, even as a comment,
hey, may I remind,
putting together a grant for a recycled water can point to ACWD has it in their plan. We're saying we do not have it in our plan.
may I remind Director Weed that we've been talking about recycled water since you and I were on the board in 1995, and we haven't done it yet. So it's been in our plan since 95.
The fear
It's
is
in a plan.
it's not been well, we had a program. It's now being bumped out of the plan, I would hope.
So because we're in a formal public hearing process. What we're doing right now is entertaining questions. We'll have a moment to entertain comments afterwards. Do you have any remaining questions, Director Weed?
No. My interpretation of what your comments are, recycled water is not in this plan. It had been in previous plans, but it's not in this plan.
The recycled water is in our WRMP, which is our long-term water supply planning for the district. So for this UWMP analysis, we didn't include the recycled water project.
You did or did not?
Did not.
Did not. Thank you.
We have other questions from the board?
Okay. I would like to make one quick comment. Thank you for putting in the Niles Canyon Aqueduct reference to it.
So I have a follow-up question and some comments.
So we're just taking questions right now. Comments will be
Okay,
after.
question only. So, we have a, potable water pilot project that the board approved. The one with, Zone 7 and Dublin San Ramon. So my question is, why is that not included in this document? Maybe Ms. Heides could answer that.
So, yeah, so the project that we've been working on with Dublin San Ramon is really more of an outreach effort at this point, and we're not pursuing anything new with that right now. So it doesn't really impact our supply for this time period that we've planned for in the UWMP. So it's not mentioned in here. And I believe we speak to some of the work that we're doing and pursuing generally in the plan, but we're not incorporating it into our planning numbers. Is that correct from the team? Anything further?
Yes, I want to clarify when we say we didn't include the recycled water in the analysis, we mean the modeling. So because the outreach project does not change our supply, so we didn't include that in the modeling analysis. So the modeling analysis focus on the supply availability and the demand and compare those two to see our reliability. So anything does not have an impact on the supply and demand, we didn't include that.
One other question, did you do any analysis on, the cost of water over the next 5 years or through 2050, where you're forecasting the different supplies that we have, what the cost might be? Because I think for the public, San Francisco's raising our rate 7.5% a year through the end of the next several years. People should know that there is pressure on our water district to sustain higher costs in the community. And I just looked at a report I passed along to our general manager, Ms. Heides, from the Department of Water Resources. It's from last month's California Water Commission meeting, where they're forecasting the cost of electricity between now and 2035, when 100% of the state water project has to be all renewable. And the state mandate is 2045 for the entire state. But for the largest consumer of electricity in the state, the Department of Water Resources, the State Water Project, the cost is going up. I think it was about 5 times over 20 years. The cost of electricity to support going to renewables. Most of the public is not aware of this.
I think it really comes down to the context of the UWMP specifically, which is it's fulfill that understanding of demand and supply to meet the demand. And so DWR has a set of requirements of where those are met, and that's really the purpose under the water management plan is to answer all those DWR data requirements, including the supply and demand. As far as the costing, that then comes from further studies based on then that demand prediction. We've demonstrated what the demand will be, what the supply will be to meet that. Then all the costing comes out of that modeling in future reports, budget analysis. WRMP is a great avenue as well, but UWMP is really not intended to answer those sorts of questions.
Okay.
Great. I have one question on this slide. So over the last 20 years or so, we've seen that the the slope of growth in housing has remained pretty constant. Obviously, if we were to meet our ABAC projections, that would require us to ramp up pretty quickly. If we were to look before 2005, has this growth remained pretty constant? What I'm trying to understand is how realistic are these two options? Which one are we more likely to end up on?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a crystal ball. I would refer to a quote from my recently retired mentor: all models are wrong, some models are useful. And this is a very useful model in that it allows us to think through that highest growth scenario as proposed by ABAG. We consider that really the higher end, that 2050 value. Can our supply and our demand be met in those future high use scenarios? And from all our modeling, yes. What's more likely, in my opinion, is more of the continued growth trend. And to your question about, as this trend carried back through the 90s, no, in the 90s, 70s, 80s, growth was much sharper. The district was really booming then, but we're in a different mode now where the service district is really built out. It's redevelopment, I believe is the term, where properties need to be bought and converted into multifamily housing. So it's a very different and frankly slower mode of growth, but it's possible.
Any final questions from the board?
Actually, I have a follow-up question regarding costs. In Brown, it looks like cost is incorporated actually in this document in chapter 3. It actually does look at capital costs and O&M costs. So if memory serves me right, when we're talking about the other plan, escalation was incorporated.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So there's lots of planning documents really at play here, and we're really trying to optimize a lot of things in all of our planning. So certainly when it comes to the 5-year urban water management plan, we are trying to optimize water supply. We're trying to ensure that we have the ability to cover contingency situations. But yeah, obviously, infrastructure and operating costs play into our near-term planning. They also play into the long-term planning, as you pointed out in the Water Resource Master Plan. We had to make some pretty rough guesses for those out years in the long-range planning. We do account for assumed changes to imported water rates and other cost factors in our financial planning model. That's a whole nother animal, but that is what we use for longer range forecasting. So I'd say the focus of this document is really not on these are the urban water management plans are pretty prescribed instruments, right? We have to do certain things. There are rules that apply to the analysis that we do. We do our own analysis, but we have to meet certain rules. So really the focus here really isn't to optimize our supplies. We actually do very different planning to optimize our supplies. We don't rely on the prescription that comes from the state to do that. We do our own assessment that we've found to be very successful over the years. So the answer is yes to all the above.
Great. If those are all the questions from the board, I will now look to staff. Would the general manager, staff, or legal counsel like to respond to any of the questions or comments that are raised by the public?
Well, hearing no questions by the public, I don't think we have more to add, and I'll look at staff and general counsel in terms of other context to add, and no, we don't.
Thank you. So I'll turn it back to the board for deliberation. I now open it for comments from the board on this matters within this public hearing.
I have some comments.
What?
Sure, Director Sethy.
Slide number 16. I brought this up the last time we went through this in 2021. I really think this is like the Bible of our district for the next 5 years until it's updated again. It's almost as thick as a Bible. And it goes under the radar screen in our community, how important this document is, how vital it is as a guiding light for our public water district. And so I feel like we need to make a special effort to better distribute this document. You can say all you want about it being available electronically, on the website, but until people actually can feel it physically and see it, they really don't know what this document is all about. And so I would encourage us to send this document out in stacks to all 3 libraries in our community. See if the cities will agree to put some stacks on the public table at the back of each city hall. Go out to each of the main libraries in the 3 cities on the public table that is available and put out a set of documents or a box of them. Ms. McCall has done a wonderful job of reaching out to the Fremont Unified School District recently. And we know that we had just recently too a program with all the science projects that students came up with, incredible projects. And so I think if we can reach out to all 3 school districts to go to the environmental science classes, same at Ohlone College and Chabot. I would send out copies to like classes or professors at Cal State East Bay, at San Jose State. And there you can even go to a broader community. It doesn't have to be just environmental sciences. This is an important document for people that are getting their undergraduate or graduate degrees in urban planning, that want to go into work for a city or a county or a district like ours. So those are just some ideas that I'm throwing out, and maybe working with our PR staff, we can look at other angles and opportunities to get this out into the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I actually have an apology to make. This is the water supply master plan.
Right, not the urban
water management plan. Got it. All right. So, but the elements from this water supply master plan is incorporated into the urban water management plan.
Yeah, that's the path we're on. Correct.
I actually was referring to both documents.
All right.
So they're both really important.
Yeah.
And I was actually making my comments directly about the urban water management plan, because that's what the community needs to be informed of in the short term. Other document with the board goals, thinking out, it's more of a visionary document. But this is what we have to live by. This is what we are signing up for with the state, the urban water management plan. So that concludes my comments. Thank you. Good job.
Comments and reading, briefly going through your report here. In chapter 3, you do a detailed description of several uses for recycled water. One was a $46 million per year direct potable reuse. That's $650 million total capital cost. So it's documented, but not recommended. That's useful.
That's
This
the
is
same
the
mistake I
research
made.
plan. This is not the plan that we're
Not all
talking about.
That was a mistake I made. So that was my apology.
And that's part of my confusion then. And then, because I didn't see much on desal. That was so, okay.
For the record, Mr. Perry and Mr. Z's responses were related to the urban water management plan. And yes, I can see they can get confusing, right? Because you have a copy of the water resources. Yeah.
Water resources another master plan for 2050.
Yeah. Sorry about any confusion there, but yeah, what we're talking about is the urban water management plan.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Gunther?
I'd like to make one comment. Great report, by the way. But I would, and this is not related to us at all. I think we plan exceptionally well. But looking at some of these figures, particularly those from ABAG, where are all these cars going to go? Are we going to build another BART? Or is everybody just going to ride bicycles and work from home? So we're trying, I just try to look at this and put it in perspective. What are the chances of 2050 actually occurring? I'm probably, I don't think I'm going to be on this board in 2050. I hope to be alive, but probably won't still be here. So I appreciate all the efforts, but it's a plan. It's a good document to work with. The planning is excellent, and we have been very good at planning. I think something like this coming from the state was to drive agencies to plan. Well, we've been planning for years. And there are agencies out there that haven't been, maybe still not. I mean, I would love to see some smaller agencies try to put one of these together. So great job. But once again, for the public, I like to say these are plans, they are thoughts, estimates where we may be 25 years from now. This is not tomorrow. One of them goes 5 years. Great. 5 years we can look at. We could actually maybe say, hey, yeah, we're probably going to be here in 5 years. And they're great plans. But I think perspective wise, we have to make sure that we understand. Unless I'm wrong, I don't see any board authorization of a project in this plan. This is the plan. It gives us options. And some good, some maybe not that great. Personally, it may sound like it, but I'm not a big recycled guy either. But it's an option. So I think it was a great plan. Good job. Thank you.
You know, something which is not part of your plan or requirements is the projection of what the cost of water is going to be. San Francisco Public Utility System is currently at about $2,600 an acre foot. At 7.5% per year for the next 10 years, it's going to be over $6,000 an acre foot in only 10 years. Yours is a 25-year plan. We keep doing those doubling and doubling. We're soon be at, assuming these rates continue at this extraordinary pace, you're at the incredible levels of $20,000+ per acre foot. Now, if you believe in rate-based conservation, we don't have a problem with our water supply. People that can't afford it. But there has to be some economic rationale and justification there. And it may well be that we will look for alternative water supplies, such as groundwater banking, where we buy the land in the San Joaquin Valley and become major property owners. So there are alternatives that can, within this 25-year plan. I made the point, and I'm on the Bosco board, that I pointed out that in 10 years, we're going to be at $6,000 an acre foot. I made the mistaken statement that we were the highest priced water. Valley water is even higher. Valley water is now past San Francisco, and will this year it had a 9% increase, but for Pacheco, they would have been at 12%. They dropped Pacheco. So cost of water is now will become an element in your planning guidelines at some point. And I would suspect that'll be in the next 25 years. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to again commend staff on all the work that went into this. I think this gives us a good outlook on the direction that we're moving in, and I think it's very helpful to members of the public as well to understand that how we're going to scale with growth in the community. And I agree with Director Sethy's comments. I wish we could push this out a little bit more so that folks can actually understand the planning that we're doing, understand the direction that we're moving in. I think it's very, very important for them. And so I do appreciate members of the public who have joined us tonight as well. And hopefully they take away something positive from all the work that we're doing here.
And so I'm just add one more. I'm going to request that we look at the reoperation of Del Val once more. There's a request by the Army Corps of Engineers. I think that we gave it a short shrift in the first round with Part 1. Now I think there's an opportunity to go back and revisit that. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I will close this public hearing and I will turn it back to staff for some closing remarks on this item.
Great. Well, thank you, President Akbari and the board for you're always very anxious to get into the details, and we appreciate that. But with the public hearing closed, there's again no action on item 5.20. We would now take up item 5.21 to consider action on this item. I just want to thank staff and the board for engaging on this item. So 521 would be next.
Wonderful. So let's move to item 5.21, resolution to adopt the 2025 to 2030 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. I'll turn it back to staff.
Okay, great. Thank you. And again, I'll turn it over to our Director of Water Resources, Ms. Heides.
Great, thank you. And I did want to acknowledge tonight, I neglected to do this in the previous item, our team members who are here. You saw some of them present today. We also have two of our water use efficiency team members here in the audience as well who worked on the plan, Jessica and Giselle. And I just want to say a huge thanks to all of them and also many other staff members that have worked on this plan and contributed from the Department of Water Resources, plus also various other departments, because there's a lot of data that goes into this plan. So with that, I'll go ahead and share the staff report. California's Urban Water Management Planning Act, Water Code Section 10610 at SEC requires all urban water suppliers that supply more than 3,000 acre-feet of water annually or have more than 3,000 customers to prepare and adopt an urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plan as standalone documents. These plans are required to be updated at least every 5 years, and the current due date is July 1st, 2026. The Urban Water Management Planning Act requires the adoption of the plans after a public hearing is conducted, which we just completed. This item was most recently reviewed with the Water Resources and Conservation Committee on March 25th, 2026. Approval of this item will help meet the district's strategic plan strategy WS1, protect, maintain, and enhance the sustainability, reliability, and quality of local, regional, and imported water supplies. And so tonight's recommendation is by motion, adopt a resolution to adopt the 2025-2030 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan. And we're happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Thank you. I will just open it again for any questions or comments from the board. Seeing none, any questions or comments from members of the public in person or online? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to the board for a motion.
I'll move the staff recommendation to adopt the 2025-2030 Urban Water Management Plan and Water Shortage Contingency Plan.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Wonderful. With that, we'll move on to item 5.22, resolution approving fiscal year 2026-2027 consolidated salary schedule and related salary schedules. And I'll turn it to staff.
Okay, great. Thank you, President Akbari. Making some good progress this evening. This next item will be covered by our director or our HR and risk manager, Miss Amy Reeve. And Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, members of the board, members of the public, and district staff. This is a resolution approving the fiscal year 2026-27 consolidated salary schedule and related salary schedules. The Board of Directors is required to adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year FY 2026-27 salary schedule that lists the base pay for all district job classifications. Additionally, because the consolidated salary schedule lists the general managers and department directors' salary ranges, an oral report that summarizes the recommendation is legally required before the board takes action to approve it. The attached salary schedules are consistent with labor negotiations concluded in 2025 and 2026 and include a 3.5% cost of living or COLA for most classifications, effective as of the pay period that includes July 1st, 2026. Department directors who are considered agency executives will receive the 3.5% COLA resulting in a new salary range of $259,272 to $315,147 for the classifications of Director of Engineering and Technical Services, the Director of Finance, the Director of Operations and Maintenance, and the Director of Water Resources. The General Manager classification was not subject to those negotiations, therefore changes to the General Manager's salary are not included but may be considered in a subsequent item. In compliance with applicable public retirement reporting requirements, separate salary schedules are also included for employees represented by Operating Engineers Local Number 3 or OE3 and the Operators Association OA, who qualify for career service pay. These schedules reflect base salary ranges inclusive of applicable career service pay as well as the 3.5% COLA. Approval of the fiscal year 2026-27 consolidated salary schedules supports the district's strategic plan goal number 3 to maintain the district's financial stability and promote transparency, and goal 4 to improve workplace health and safety, enhance recruitment, maintain retention, and deepen employee engagement. The recommendation is by motion to adopt a resolution approving and adopting the attached fiscal year 2026-27 consolidated salary schedule and one related salary schedule as described in this report. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Look to the board for any questions or comments on this item.
None.
Seeing none, I will turn to members of the public in person or online. If you have any questions or comments, you may offer them now. Seeing none, I'll turn back to the board and see if we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item, the resolution on agenda item 5.22.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Thank you. Now, I want to move on to item 5.23, but I'll just see if there's a request for a break. Happy to do so. If not, we can continue on.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, we'll move on to item 5.23, resolution amending the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget and the 25-year capital improvement program for mid-cycle revisions.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. And of course, another very important item, our marquee item for this evening. The board has engaged in the budget in a separate workshop in a fair amount of detail, looking closely at the fiscal year 26-27 budget and the capital improvement program as well. But we're back this evening for the board to consider approval of the budget. And so with that, I'll turn it over to our interim director of finance, Mr. Calvin Cho.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, director, staff, and member of the public. As a follow-up to the budget workshop held on Tuesday, May 19, staff is presenting the proposed amended fiscal year 26-27 mid-year budget cycle for the board's consideration and adoption. Mr. Martin Coran, Financial Analysis Supervisor, will provide a brief recap of the proposed budget and key items discussed at the workshop. I'll now turn it over to Mr. Coran for the presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cho. Good evening, members of the board, members of public, and staff. Here's our agenda for this evening. We're going to review the budget assumptions included in the proposed amended budget and present any updates since the budget workshop, and actually there have been none. So we'll review the amended budget and the financial planning model metrics, and then present staff recommendations. So this illustrates the district's 2-year budget cycle. You've seen it many times, our circle of life, as we like to call it. So our current mid-cycle budget process, we actually began it last December. The Finance and Administration Committee reviewed the draft amended budget at the April committee meeting, and then the board reviewed the amended budget at the budget workshop last month. So we are here tonight for board consideration and adoption of the amended mid-cycle budget. The amended budget includes the following key assumptions. The water demand forecast is aligned with water resources projections with long-term demand at 33.85 million gallons per day. The state water project table A allocation was budgeted at 30%, although we were recently informed of an increase to 45%. We did not update the projections for that. The budget assumes a 5% rate increase in fiscal year 27 and fiscal year 28. As well, San Francisco Public Utility Commission increases its water rate 7.4% per year for each of the next 2 years, effective July 1. Then funding for the capital improvement program includes $20 million per year in interim financing beginning next year, fiscal year 27. Also, labor and benefit cost assumptions are consistent with negotiated agreements for all groups. And just as a quick update again on the retiree health savings account, currently there are 119 active employees enrolled in the plan. Next up is one proposed staffing change of removing one vacant limited term treatment facilities operator position. This position was actually added during the fiscal year 25 budget. I apologize for the typo on the screen. It says fiscal 26, but it was added during the fiscal year 25 budget to support the startup of the PFAS treatment system. So here are the total revenues for all funds. Overall, the fiscal year 26 revenues are expected to come in about 1% above budget, mostly due to healthy facilities connection charge revenues as well as PFAS settlement money. Water revenues are forecast to come in about 1% below budget since the overall trend has been about a 1.5% lower consumption than initially anticipated. And for the proposed amended budget for fiscal year 27, total revenues are expected to increase 11%. As previously identified, the financial planning model assumes a 5% rate increase next year, fiscal year 27, along with a modest increase in new meters resulting from development. I'll drop down to grants. The district is still expecting $13 million in grants. Overall, district staff continues to work hard to pursue additional funding opportunities, including Water Smart for the brackish groundwater desal for a southern groundwater facility. For property tax, we're expecting an increase of 3.5% based on county data, and we continue to assume 3.5% growth in future years. Interest revenue is based on the most recent earnings reports and forecasts from Chandler, and we're projecting conservative earnings around 3% a year on out. For facilities connection charges and customer jobs, the pace increased significantly during this fiscal year, with development activity catching up from last year's slowdown. However, the activity has slowed down over the spring. And then the other revenues at the bottom, this includes items such as Department of Water Resources refunds, property leases, licenses and permits, as well as PFAS settlement funds. Next up are total expenses for all funds. And they're estimated to be about $16.3 million below budget this year, mostly as a result of shifted capital project schedules. The current year includes actual vacancy savings, while budget years are based on full staffing and a budgeted 3% vacancy factor. Comparing the fiscal year estimated budget for fiscal year 26 compared with the adopted fiscal year 26, and then also the fiscal year 27 amended versus the adopted operating budget, the following changes, I'll explain the following changes. So operating expenses reflect an overall savings of $4.7 million in the amended budget compared to the adopted fiscal year 27 budget. Source of supply costs are driven by the cost of purchased water. And again, to reiterate, SFPUC costs are increasing 7.4% per year over the next 2 years, although we are assuming average demand years. But we shifted $3.2 million of SFPUC, the July 2026 purchase. The money will be expended in June, so this month, 2026, similar to what we did last year. For customer accounts, again, electronic bill pay process is successful and popular with customers, with over 47,000 customers signed up for auto pay, and 99% of the payment volume includes one-time payments, which are electronic. When we get to administrative and general costs, these reflect a combination of factors, various leave times, labor and benefit cost assumptions that are consistent with negotiated agreements for all groups. And the benefits reflect actual premiums and cost inflators consistent with the latest actuarial reports. To reiterate, all of this in the A&G category, the administrative and general, includes OPEB and pension advance funding for continuing the more aggressive payments through July 2031. Capital projects generally making good progress, but some projects have been delayed, as we've been discussing over the last few weeks. Debt service is based on current debt schedules. And then within the expense projects, you'll notice beginning next year for the fiscal 27 amended budget, expense projects will be classified as either operating expenses or capital projects, and therefore this line will be zero moving forward. Now we're up to cash balances for all funds. So since fiscal year 25 ended slightly lower than originally estimated, fiscal year 26, our current year, started off slightly lower as well. So taking into account the revenues and expenses we've already discussed, we expect to finish this fiscal year $16.7 million better than the adopted budget projected at this time last year. Again, that's the result of mostly the result of shifted capital projects. The ending balance in fiscal year 27 is projected to be about $18 million above the adopted budget. But if you compare the estimate for fiscal year 26 versus the amended budget for fiscal year 27, that's $4 million. The fiscal year 27 budget is $4 million lower than this year. And that's the result of capital projects and water purchase timing. So this next slide shows district reserves based on the reserve policy approved by the board. And the main takeaway here is that reserves meet or exceed the established targets. The debt coverage is well above 200%. You'll notice that the estimated actual for this fiscal year, we expect it to be 565% debt coverage. And by the end of fiscal year 27 amended budget, we should be at 471% debt coverage. So we have healthy reserves. The next two charts illustrate the percentage breakdown of total general fund labor costs by cost center, including capital projects, customer capital contributions, and debt service. So labor is the patterned portion of the chart, while all other expenses are solid. So this chart shows the total general fund estimated actual for fiscal year 26 of $177.3 million, of which labor is 35% of the total. This is because providing high quality water at a reasonable price requires significant infrastructure expenses and water purchases. The next chart shows the total general fund amended budget for next year, fiscal 27, of $194.6 million, of which labor is 34% of the total. Next up are capital projects. So spending for the current fiscal year is estimated to be approximately $52 million in comparison to budget at $67.7 million. So capital projects planned for next year are estimated to be $66.2 million, increasing $6.3 million compared to the adopted budget, and that's because of the project schedule shift. And significant capital investments are planned next year, continuing Alvarado Niles Pipeline Seismic Improvement Project, which is $10.5 million. There's the main renewal project for Fremont Crestwood at $10 million. It's also Groundwater Alternative Data Gap Project for $5.7 million. And then Brackish Groundwater Reclamation Project for $3.6 million, amongst a host of others. This next slide illustrates the district CIP over the next 10 years by the type of project. So seismic improvement projects related to pipelines such as Alvarado Niles and storage facility retrofits such as Dakota Reservoir roof replacement and Patterson Reservoir remediation. All these projects are expected to take place within the next 5 years. Main renewals will remain a major component of the CIP, but there will be intermediate drops in the main renewal category in fiscal years 28 and 31, which represent planning and design efforts. The increased treatment and transmission expenditures during the mid-range of the 10-year period here, which account for expansion of the PFAS system and the Shin Pond fish screens. And then customer contributions are tied to development activity, and they're expected to stay relatively stable for the next 10 years. All right, next we'll get into the financial planning metrics. So the top metric shows the projected general fund ending balances, and the projected ending balance at the end of the planning horizon is the low year in fiscal year 31 at $15.8 million below the reserve target. Below that are the projected build demand metrics, and these reflect reductions in the updated demand projections, with planned water purchases reflecting the lower build demands. So the long-term new normal water demand is a slight increase to 33.94 million gallons per day in the out years. This year, we're expecting it at 33.3 million gallons per day. The next two metrics on the screen compare operating revenues to operating expenses, as well as rate and charge revenue to the revenue requirement. And as you can see between the bars and the lines, there's an overlap there, and that identifies a funding gap. And the district, basically these charts show that the district relies on other funding sources such as non-operating revenues, reserves, and debt proceeds to fill in the funding gaps. Last metric slide. The top metric here shows the district's debt coverage ratios represented by the blue dotted line. And you can see they are well above the 200% target set by the board, which is the red line. And strong debt coverage is one of the factors rating agencies look at in the upgrade of the district's credit rating, upgrade and maintenance of the district's credit rating. The metric at the bottom shows capital improvement funding by source. So PAYGO, general fund cash is green, and green is good. And we have the facilities improvement fund in purple, the facilities renewal fund in orange, and then debt financing in pink. So PAYGO general fund provides on average $35.6 million a year in funding for the district's capital program. Interim financing is estimated to provide $20 million per year moving forward. $10 million per year in funding comes from the Facilities Improvement Fund, and about $1.5 million per year comes from the Facilities Renewal Fund. So here is the staff recommendation. So by motion, adopt a resolution amending the fiscal year 26-27 budget and the 25-year capital improvement program. That concludes staff presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Curran. I will first look to the board for any questions or comments on this presentation.
Comments.
Yeah, Director Sethy.
So I want to compliment the staff for doing a fantastic job beginning in December, moving forward through all our workshops and everything. And I really like the detailed analysis on everything. I wanted to make one comment that came out in our last Finance Committee meeting. I believe it was the last one or the previous one. This board had the courage to take some serious steps to increase our fixed charges some years back. We did it repeatedly so that we could add some stability to our forecasted revenue and expenses and plan better for the future. And we got to the point where we really did start to have a solid feel for revenue and expenses, and we got off the roller coaster ride that we'd gone through with every recession, every drought. You know, and sometimes it was both at the same time, you know. And there was even a point in the 1970s when they were looking at selling the water district to a private entity because things got so bad. So what was most revealing recently is that after we made the last major fixed charge adjustment, our revenues have been within 1% either plus or minus of our forecast for 10 straight years. That is incredible. Most businesses can't forecast like that. But to be within 1% plus or minus every single year, I think is a testament to not only the bold actions that the board took, but how well the staff has performed in projecting out our expenses and how we meet with them. And this year, we're going to conclude June, our latest fiscal year, we're within 1% again. It's truly amazing. So compliments to staff. And I will be the first to make a motion to adopt the resolution on item 5.23, but I don't want to stop further discussion here.
I can second the motion, put it on the table. I would note we achieved that with staged rates because we don't match fixed costs with fixed income and variable cost to variable income. It would be helpful, I think, in your presentations to show that disparity.
Director Weed, we meet it by other means.
Well, we deal with staged rates. When we run into a shortfall, we just bump the cost on an interim basis, the cost of water. We do it significantly.
I think we'll have plenty of time to talk about rates in the near future.
You don't have a fixed rate plan. But if you could go to slide number 14. Okay. That graph has been the same graph I've seen for 30 years. There's a planner's group. We show that we're really going to do well for a few years out, and then we run into problems. Somehow, magically, when it comes up to the next year, it just shifted a year.
It's because we did a rate adjustment.
The same pattern is there. It might be interesting to put a dashed line to show, because we could, after the 40, 50 years of this, we could show that the outer years are speculative, and we in every case we don't run into that problem five or 6 years out. It's been a remarkable pattern.
Director, we adjust our rates to address the deficiencies that we see in the out years.
But we've done modest amounts of changes, but it's been the same pattern. And while there's rate adjustments, as with stage rates, as a way to respond, we could lock it in when we have a true match and be able to have an automatic adjustment based on the commodity cost versus commodity income, fixed cost with fixed income.
Well, I think we'll have a lovely discussion of this in the next couple weeks and months. But it's
hot today. It's going to get even more.
Yes. I have lots to say, but not tonight.
Yeah. Great. No additional questions or comments from my end. Thank you very much. I'll look to our members of the public in person or online. If you have any questions or comments, you can approach the speaker's podium or raise your hand in the Zoom app. If not, I think we have a motion and a second already, so I'll look for roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Cran, and to all the finance staff. Wonderful. So with that, we'll move on to item number 6, reports. We'll start with item 6.1, board committee reports. Any questions or comments on any board committee reports? Seeing none from the board, seeing none from members of the public, we'll move on to item 6.2, operational reports. Again, I'll take any questions or comments on any operational reports from board members or the public. Seeing none. 6.3, staff presentations. I don't believe we have any staff presentations.
That's correct.
Great. So we can move on to item 6.4, general managers reports.
Okay, well, I'll try and keep them relatively quick. First of all, 6.4.1, just want to confirm with the board and the public to kind of put it on the record, just to confirming that the board, special board meetings that we're showing on our board calendar for June 25 and July 30, that those will happen. So Double check your calendars. We know that there's at least one director may not be able to make the June 25th meeting. That's okay. We can review things in another forum, but I just wanted to make sure you all are setting those on your calendars and will be attending. July 30, by the way, is we agree with you all. You're antsy, you can't wait to get into rates. So July 30 is going to be our first initial discussion related to rates. For item 6.4.2, I'll turn it over to Ms. Heides.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. The district's Groundwater Resources Division regularly works with Alameda County Health staff and the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board staff on the oversight of groundwater cleanup sites located within the Niles Cone groundwater basin. Alameda County staff had recently reached out to Ms. Walden, Groundwater Resources Manager, to find out what the district was experiencing in terms of groundwater quality impacts from PFAS and how the district has responded within our service area. Ms. Walden was subsequently asked to participate in presenting a brief overview of the district's activities as related to groundwater and PFAS at the June 8th Alameda County Board of Supervisors Health Committee meeting. Staff from the state's Division of Drinking Water and Regional Board, Division of Drinking Water, the Regional Board, were also asked to present along with county health staff and local agencies such as ours and Zone 7. In addition to agency staff, a member of the Go Green Initiative who lives in Pleasanton was asked to present on the community perspective. The Health Committee includes Supervisor Nate Miley, who is the chair, and Supervisor Lena Tam, who is a former East Bay Mud water supply supervisor as well. Ms. Walden on June 8th provided a brief summary of the district's proactive sampling and transparent communication with our customers. She assured the committee that water provided to customers continues to meet or exceed all state and federal drinking water standards. Information was provided about the district's expanded groundwater sampling to include monitoring wells, Quarry Lakes, and Alameda Creek to determine the extent of PFAS in the Niles Cone, most of which has been characterized today. An overview of the district's groundwater basin, groundwater facilities, including the district's PFAS treatment facility at Blender, was provided as well. The district's long-term water resources planning efforts continue to rely on adaptive management to optimize groundwater and surface water supplies. So she included all this in her presentation. She also expressed appreciation to the state's Division of Drinking Water and the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board staff for assistance and help navigating the PFAS issues and the continued collaboration. So we wanted to share that this presentation had occurred and also share that we learned at the meeting that next steps are that the county will be looking at ways to provide some health-specific guidance on their website. So this concludes my update for the evening.
Okay. That concluded that update, Ms. Heides, but how about an update on 6.4.3?
6.4.3. Good question, Mr. Stevenson. Is this some late breaking news that we have?
Sorry, Laura. Yes, Laura has been very active this week. In fact, even today, helping out a Cub Scout troop or some sort of scouting troop, right? Okay, so I'll go ahead and cover this one. So
thank you.
This has to do with, it's similar to an item we reported on last month, had to do with support for AB 2215. This is a bill in the legislative cycle right now. We had shared with the board that staff had provided a letter, signed on to a coalition letter of support for that bill that has to do with state water project water rights and the time extension that the state is seeking for to extend the time period that it has to perfect its water rights. That bill at the time we reported last month was going through the assembly. It has made it cleanly through the assembly. It's a few days ago. It was slated for consideration within the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committee. And so staff signed on to a very, very similar letter by the same coalition that includes South Bay Aqueduct Partners, including Valley Water and Zone 7 and others within the Bay Area. pointing out the importance of the Delta and the State Water Project to our population served and so forth. And we wanted to ensure that our voices were heard and considered by those committees. So same message this time around, but we're just kind of updating that message that we provided to you all last time, that we sent another one of those coalition letters to the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committee. Anything to add to that, Ms. Heides?
No, thank you for mailing me out on that, Mr. Stevenson. And yes, it was very similar to the last letter, and there is going to be an additional activity around this AB 2215 bill coming up as well, with as it moves to the Senate and has further discussion.
Okay, and my very last item is just a quick housekeeping item. At the very end of our agenda this evening, on the agenda that's published for this meeting, there's a table there, a typical table that talks about the upcoming committee meetings. I just wanted to point out that the Water Resources and Conservation Committee meeting is shown as June 24. That actually has now been rescheduled to June 23. We had a conflict there, and I just wanted to call that out here. The website's been updated and so forth. And the calendar that the board received recently shows the right date and so forth. But I just wanted to update that item on the agenda. That does it for general manager's reports this evening.
You know, on that subject, Mr. Stevenson, on our website, it doesn't show our board meeting for tonight. And I can show you where it is later. It's not on the calendar.
Okay.
It shows it as blank. I'll find it. I'll show you.
All right. We'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Sometimes if you refresh the page, it'll, because I had that issue this morning as well. We can always address that offline.
Okay. I am seeing it on the version that I'm looking at, but we'll take a look at that, Director Sethy.
I'll pull it up because I just had it up here earlier.
Okay.
Okay, that concludes item 6.4. With that, we'll move on to item 7, director's comments, reports on meetings attended, and agenda item requests. We'll start at the end of the dais.
Nothing from me.
Gunther? Sethy? All right, Director Weed, you have an item 7.1 from the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority.
Okay. Yes, this will be my last month. I serve every 2 years, but back and forth being the alternate. We share a seat with the ACWD, and Zone 7 share a seat. On Delta Conveyance, the state has withdrawn the second lawsuit on validation and is contemplating what they're going to do next. The real challenge with validation is that we lose the right to put the cost of the state water project on the property tax statement. Currently, but for the validation, which went to the first lawsuit, appealed, appellate court unanimously supported the denial of validation, and they went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court rejected that. And the second lawsuit coming down has been pulled. As of now, sums with interest about $600 million. That would be ACWD's share of the Delta Tunnel. Will have to come out of our rates. That is as opposed to being put on the property tax statement as a separate billing. Significant hit, and hopefully we can put in something we should be looking at in our financial planning if Delta Conveyance survives. Water rights are another issue. They're attempting to get a longer run, but if we have to go for financing to the private sector, water rights become important. That's my report on that item.
Great. Thank you, Director Weed. Next item is mine and related to the DCA. So ACWD and Zone 7 share and rotate a Class 2 director and alternate seat on the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority Board, also known as the DCA. The current appointments are Director Weed and DCA as DCA Director and Zone 7's Director Sarah Palmer as the DCA alternate expire on June 30th. In accordance with the letter of understanding between ACWD and Zone 7, the Director's seat will now shift to Zone 7, and the ACWD seat will become the alternate for the upcoming 2-year term. ACWD and Zone 7 need to inform the DCA of their appointments for the next 2-year term by July 1st. Zone 7 intends to appoint Sarah Palmer as Director, and ACWD needs to identify or reaffirm our appointments to serve as an alternate. The ACWD board previously authorized the board president to make appointments to the DCA board, and I wanted to inform the board of my intention to continue the appointment of Director Weed to the DCA board on behalf of ACWD, representing ACWD and Zone 7 in Class 2 as board alternate. The expectation would be that Director Weed would represent the interests of both ACWD and Zone 7, and not the interests of just one agency or one director. So I wanted to share my thinking with the board to receive input and also confirm with Director Weed his interest in serving in that position.
I'm willing to serve, but if there's other interest.
Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you for volunteering. I mean, I have an interest, however, I don't have the knowledge. So I will fully support your continued position.
Thank you.
Yes.
Maybe try to make a few meetings, perhaps after my retirement here in another month or two.
Oh,
But
okay.
for right now,
Not from the board.
No.
not from the board. No, my job will actually be able to go on some of these fantastic voyages. But yeah, I fully support being there. So
Thank you.
I have a conflict of interest because this is my 8th year, the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority.
I support
I'm
that too.
happy just focusing on that.
Great. Awesome. Well, I think that confirms that.
Do we have items?
Oh, that reminds me. Sorry, I didn't bring this up with the general manager before, but our former finance director, Mr. Wunderlich, was my alternate to the DCFA. We need to make a future appointment of my alternate.
Not planning on missing any meetings, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay. All right. Well, we can work on that.
I'd like to make one personal comment on board comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Society of, actually not Society, the Army Corps of Engineers has requested that they be given items to study, to look at for water supply in the state. And historically, there was the WRDA process that you had to go through with a couple of exceptions to get the Army Corps of Engineers to pay attention. I would hope that we could talk about 2 items. One is politically challenging, and that would be to go back to the original concept in Las Vaqueras to eventually build a 1 million acre foot reservoir at Kellogg Creek with the Kellogg forebay. It goes all the way back to the days of the Perfield Canal. And it could be done for about the same amount of money that we were proposing to spend in raising of Las Vaqueras, and give us 3 times the water. As the Delta becomes more and more of a seasonal water supply, storage south of the Delta becomes critical. So that's one. The second is Del Val. The cost of new storage is running about $20 million per 1,000 acre feet. And so if we could generate, let's say, 30,000 acre feet of additional storage at Del Val, that's $600 million. And since it's operational storage, it's a multiple of that. You're getting over $1 billion worth of value. We're merely relocating some park facilities. It makes all the sense in the world. The park district's lease for the Del Val has been modified. It had a 50-year. They were only given a 5-year extension with 2 additional years on it. So it's in play. And From our standpoint, the ability to get storage that's operational tied to the Delta conveyance with or without a tunnel is really important. And I have made a list of various options that we can look at to accomplish that. Relocating an intake from a water treatment facility, relocating a park district, building you could raise the glory hole. You could use the chain of lakes as a place to deposit stormwater, rather than having to come all the way down Alameda Creek. There are, as you go down the list with the flood control detention facilities, what was previously the N3 ranch, not retention, but detention, it would slow it down and take care of the flood control issues. Because the Army Corps of Engineers is primarily interested in flood control, and they have limited right now, out of the 70,000 acre feet that's there, 15,000 acre feet is available to be shared between ACWD and Zone 7. For every 1,000 of those acre feet, you can increase it. It's a multiple of the $20 million. So hopefully we can get that to work out and possibly work with Valley Water, which has its own challenges now that Pacheco's no longer on the table, might come in and talk to us. And while they're doing, and Joint Power Authority between the three South Bay Aqueduct contractors, even if it doesn't have any specific authorization or things to do, takes 6 months to a year to create a JPA. I think it'd be worth our while to at least establish the structure of JPA. Thank you.
Director Weed? Any final director's comments? Great. With that, we'll move on to item 8, closed session. Item 8.1, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated negotiators are Board President Akbari and Vice President Weed, and the unrepresented General Manager Stevenson. And with that, we'll move into closed session.
Damage to a sidewalk. Sacred land, you don't touch that one.
All right, we're going to go back into open session. It is 8:11 p.m. We are reconvening in open session. We concluded our closed session item 8.1. We're moving on to item 9.1, consideration of a resolution approving Fifth Amendment to employment agreement between District and Edward Henry Stevenson and approving fiscal year 2026-2027 consolidated salary schedule to update the general manager salary range. I've got another script here. So on June 10th, 2021, the district entered into an employment agreement with Ed Stevenson to employ him as the district's general manager. On June 9th, 2022, and June 8th, 2023, on June 13th, 2024, and on June 12th, 2025, the district and the general manager entered into the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, and Fourth Amendment to the employment agreement to increase the general manager's compensation based on the general manager's performance evaluation. The district and the general manager desire to amend the employment agreement to increase the general manager's compensation, which is and will remain at step 5 of the salary schedule, with a 3.5% cost of living adjustment for a total annual salary of $354,567.20, effective the pay period that includes July 1st, 2026. All other terms and conditions of the employment agreement will remain the same. If the board approves the Fifth Amendment to the employment agreement, the previously approved updated fiscal year 2026-2027 consolidated salary schedule needs to be updated to include the 3.5% COLA increase for the general manager's salary range. The proposed resolution includes the updated consolidated salary schedule, and the only change to the salary schedule that was approved earlier tonight is the increase for the general manager's salary range. The board may discuss this item, and the board may consider a motion to adopt the resolution approving the Fifth Amendment to the employment agreement between the district and Ed Stevenson, and approving the fiscal year 2026-2027 consolidated salary schedule to update the general manager's salary range. Now turn it to the board for any questions or comments on this item.
None from me.
Seeing none, I'll open it up to members of the public in person and online for any questions or comments on this item. Seeing none, I will turn back to the board for a motion.
I will move to approve Fifth Amendment to Employment Agreement between District and Edward Henry Stevenson and approving fiscal year 2026-27 consolidated salary schedule to update the general manager's salary range.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. With that, that concludes our items for tonight. We will adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:15 p.m. Thank you, everyone.